Hello, everyone. How are you doing today? I hope all is well. My name is Shanice, and welcome to my channel called Shaniceology, where I talk about how I've hurt and how I've healed. Um, Today is a story time video. So, my story is about um, surviving a tragic natural disaster, and I hope it helps someone out there. So let's dive in. First of all, I want to say that I do believe that God gives second chances. Um, God is a gracious God, a loving God, a God that will protect and provide for all His children. And we are all His children, so we will always be sufficient with God. So, to start off this story, um, I was living in the Caribbean at the time, and I grew up in the Caribbean with my mother. Um, we came from humble beginnings. My mother would work hard. She sent me to private school. Um, I had lots of connections when it came to my friends. My neighbors were my friends. We all used to play outside. It's not like today, the way the children grow up today. We got a lot of exercise, and phones weren't a thing for us. So, we managed however we could. Um, my family is not the wealthiest family. Um, we've had to like really make ends meet however we could, and it was really a struggle growing up. But as a child, I didn't notice that. I felt very blessed and fortunate to have a roof over my head and food on my back. I mean, food on my table and clothes on my back. And that was, blessing enough as it is. And I had family, like my family was there, and I was with my mom, and I was living the perfect little childhood life. Like, the beach is right there. You could go to the beach anytime. You go downtown. We go on trips with our mom. Um, and life was good as a child. I'm so grateful that I came from living there for such an extended period of time, and it has definitely helped me become the person that I am today. Um, so this story goes, it was a day in 2004. 2004, um, I actually gave my life to God. Um, Not knowing much. I was actually like 10 years old, and the pastor did an altar call and called us up to the front, and whoever, wanted that blessing from God. And I stood up and I walked up to that pulpit, and, you know, I gave my life to God. And there were my friends around me were saying, no, don't go, don't go, don't go. But like, I was feeling that calling within me to, um, to make that decision, and I did. And I've been so grounded in my faith since that day. Um, it has definitely helped me overcome a lot of sticky situations in my life, so I'm grateful. Um, so back to the story. Also in 2004 was when this happened, this natural disaster. Um, Leading up to the event, everyone was doing preparations. The news was making forecasts about, a hurricane hitting the island, and, people were obviously in panic mode. People were boarding up their windows, um, you know, fixing their roofs, whatever they need to do to add extra security to their properties and to their, things that they own, like their stores and, stuff like that. And I don't think we took it as seriously. Even though we did all of that, we still felt like, okay, it's normal. These types of occasions happen, but we didn't expect it to be at the extent that I will tell you it happened. So we too, my family, we were boarding up our windows and preparing for the event. I don't think we had any vehicles, so that wasn't a part of it. But our home, we were trying our best to keep it together, keep it intact, and we went to bed. The next day, we woke up. I don't remember if I had school or not. I don't think so. I don't think there was school yet, but it was in September, but I don't think there was school yet. And the whole day was kind of like dark. The day was dark. It was like foggy outside. It looked like a storm was really about to come, and it did. So, um, this was around evening time. We were getting ready to, like, I think we just finished eating, and we were like, hanging out as a family does. It's one house full of like 10 people. And it was my grandmother, my mom, my aunts, my cousins, my baby brother, my baby cousin. So two babies, um, our dog, and our cat. But I'm not sure where the cat was at the time. So my mom, I remember how when it first hit. Like I remember it was when it first hit. I was sitting in the living room, and my mom was closing the windows for the living room, and the wind just started blowing, 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 and a stick came and hit her in her forehead, and then the house just started tearing down, like ripping away. It was a board house, and the house just started ripping away from the roof, and it started going, and we said we got to get out of here. So we all carried ourselves, and we ran from the back of the house because the front of the house was starting to tear apart, and we ran up on the road. Galvanizes blowing, trees are blowing in the air, like literally, like they're detached from these structures, and they're flying by, and we are running through all of that chaos. And we ran to the neighbor's house, and we sat there. Sorry, I'm getting a little loud. Yeah, we sat there, and we sat in the neighbor's balcony, and all night it was storming. It was storming, but the neighbor had a wall house, a brick house. So we were able to just, find a safe haven in her balcony upstairs. And I remember we just sat there. We're like, we're going to get through this. We're going to be okay. We're going to be strong. Like, we were really encouraging one another in this fight. And I think that's the closest time I ever seen my family like be like that's my last kind of memory of us like being so close knit and being so, in tune with one another. And so we stayed there. Night came. It was still storming, storming, storming. Things were flying. Thank God nothing hit us in that balcony. And so we're in there, we lay down, we're laying there, and the owner of the house comes to the window just to look out, she said. She came and she's like, oh, I was trying to look and see what it was looking like, and we were all in her balcony, and she let us in her house, and her roof was, off, but, some parts were still there, so we hid under the shade, like the roof shade in the house. And we were really talking about this. We were talking about the whole event, and even till morning it was still kind of storming a little bit, and we were just like, what? And then I don't know if we calmed down or what happened, but we looked out, or I remember looking out and seeing our house flat on the ground. Our house was flat on the ground. And it broke our hearts because, we don't have much already. And the little we did have is gone. Everything we know is gone, you know? So it was a bit heartbreaking. And, we were distraught from that experience. But, um, yeah, that was really tragic to see our house just go down to the ground like that. All our stuff inside. Yeah, it's not something I wish on anyone. But carrying on, so everyone's houses were pretty much wrecked. Some houses were brick houses, so the damage wasn't as tragic as ours, but still people had to rebuild, reconnect. The whole infrastructure, the landscaping, the trees were gone, people's cars were messed up. Like it was so much going on. And when I was there, that's when I really saw community as well within the community. And everyone was there for each other, giving each other what we need: sugar, water, ice, um, rice, anything we need or they need, we exchange whatever we had. And, you know, when you come from humble beginnings like that, it's hard to um, not, not, it's hard to not reconnect with that portion of your life where, you know, you had to go through something. But continuing on with the story. So, missionaries came from, I'm assuming, Canada and America. Some people came with their cameras. I'm not sure what stations they were from. I was still a young kid. But I was always that child who would smile. Like every time I see a camera, I'm like this cheesing for the camera, every single time. And so I remember being with my younger brother who was about 10, maybe like 8 months around this time. And, nothing came of that. I didn't expect anything, anyways. I was just happy to be a kid in front of a camera. But um, missionaries came and they helped us clean up all the rubble and supplied us with food, helped us rebuild a little house again. And I believe that house is still there. Built another house, but we still were struggling. We were still struggling to find food, struggling to make ends meet. People weren't working. There was just, everything was a wreck. All the businesses were done. Like everywhere was mush up, you know what I'm saying? So everyone everywhere was like rebuilding, and it was hard. It was very hard. And, even till this day, it's hard in that island. But there's been a lot of new, beautiful departments that have became since the event of that hurricane. Um, Yeah, my family was struggling to find food. People were struggling to have work, to make money, to do the things we need to do. But thank God for missionaries who reached out, and outreach programs that helped our community rebuild itself back to what it is today, um, which is the beautiful Grenada. I'm from Grenada. Uh, hey. So, Grenada, as well as many other islands in the Caribbean, got hit by this hurricane called Hurricane Ivan. And it really changed the dynamic of the Caribbean and of the islands. I see a lot of places rebuilt. Um, But I can't remember too much into after because shortly after, I didn't even see this coming, but shortly after, I was granted an opportunity to come to Canada. And my mom told me this, and I was like crying every day. I didn't want to leave Grenada. I didn't want to leave my mom. I didn't want to leave my family. I didn't want to leave what I knew, you know. But I was still great. I wasn't grateful then because I didn't understand leaving my mom behind and not being with her since I've been with her my whole life, you know? And so I came to Canada and I cried every day for like a year and a half. I was crying every day and was getting like made fun of for crying because I'm not around my mom, you know. Whether we had a house or not, I had my mom and I was happy, you know. But I came to Canada and I got my education. I was trying to be a good kid for my guardian, you know, not trying to get myself in any trouble because I don't have my mom or my dad. And it was very hard for me to adjust to Canadian life. And even though I am Canadian, but I left when I was a young child and I grew up, my childhood, my half of my childhood was in the Caribbean. So it was hard adjusting. And so that's why I'm not with my mother because, you know, some things transpired with her, you know, being here. And so it just hasn't been able to happen yet. But I say this to say that God does give second chances, you know, because now I went back to Grenada about 5 years ago and the place looks completely different. It's unrecognizable to me. And that's what I mean by the whole infrastructure has improved, has changed. Um, the land that my house was taken in, now it has multiple houses. Most of my aunts, my mom, everyone has their own house. Um, so I feel like everything happens for a reason. There were a few people that also lost their lives to that Hurricane Ivan incident, and my condolences to the families of those members of Grenada. Um, my heart goes out to anyone who's lost anyone in any kind of way, you know, because it's a part of life, but no one should experience a loss that's not, you know, what they're expecting. And so, Grenada, thank you so much for keeping me humble, keeping me sane, bringing me back to life, welcoming me with open arms every time I arrive in the country. And I'm so grateful to God that Grenada got a second chance as well as other islands that got hit by the hurricane. They got a second chance to rebuild, build their own identity, have their own independence, you know, and it's great to see all this growth in all these years and to see that that's where I grew up. I understand now why I have to go harder so I can help in any way I can because I know the people in my life are still having hard times. But my peers are doing fairly fantastic. And I'm so proud of them. And me too. I'm also doing great in life. I'm happy. I'm stable. I have what I need. I have my child. And she has definitely been the greatest blessing I've ever received thus far. Oh, yeah. hmm But to see how, the people in my family were protecting us as the kids, that's the way that I always want to protect my child, you know? She deserves to be protected. She deserves to be loved. And she deserves to visit Grenada one day. So I'm going to make that happen for her. And when I do, for sure, I'm going to share it with you guys, this whole experience. Um, God is a gracious God. God is a loving God. And life will not always be perfect. But you always have to be optimistic about the goals you have for yourself, the plans you have for yourself, and how you're going to utilize those goals for your betterment and for your happiness and for your sustenance, you know? I say this to say you are special. You deserve a second chance. If you feel like you're struggling right now or you're going through hard times, just know it can't rain forever. Um, there's definitely a rainbow or sunshine at the end of the tunnel, you know? So always stay grateful for everything you have, even when you feel like you have nothing. You have yourself and you have your journey, and that is what makes you unique, you know? I definitely love that I can share my journey and share my experiences here. And I appreciate the engagement. I appreciate your likes, your shares, and your subscribes. You all have been so generous with your time when it comes to me. And I appreciate it because, as you can see, I'm still a growing channel. But please help me by, engaging. Watch me. You can like my video, comment, share, subscribe. And we will talk in the next video. Thank you. Bye.